So welcome to the Node.js Build Working Group meeting for January 22nd, 2025. We will follow our standard approach of going through the issues that were tagged for the agenda. Before we dive into the agenda itself, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? If not, I'm also forgot, but I'm going to paste in here into the chat if people can add themselves. That's the doc. If you can add yourself to the list of attendees, that would be great. Just add myself too. Okay, so let us go on to the agenda items. So the first one is Equinix Metal Sunset June 2026. I think Ryan has the last actions on that one. Richard,
No,
sounds
no,
like
no, no,
you
no.
need to
This
know.
one is
No?
different.
Okay.
So uh, there isn't trying to look at them. So there are other issues covering. So we've been previously asked to migrate our non-ARM, so x64 resources off Equinix. There are other issues covering that. This is different. This is Equinix Metal itself is being sunset completely in 2026. So it's over a year to that, but it's for us to well, I've opened this to try and track what that means. So we've already been asked to move the x64 resources off of Equinix Metal, and those have been tracked separately. That would leave the ARM resources that we've got under the Works on ARM program. And I've opened this and trying to see if we can find out what's going to happen to those machines. So we currently have a couple of Ampere Ultras under the Works on ARM program at Equinix Metal. Losing those would be a significant setback in terms of ARM support for the project, but I don't know yet. So Ed said before Christmas he'd let us know when he knows more. He's been our contact within Equinix Metal. This is a risk, so I've opened this. I don't really have any updates for this meeting, but I think we do need to keep track of this because this is, potentially if we find out that we need to move these, we need to know as soon as possible so that we can try and make plans. I don't know what plans those would be, but that's a significant part of our ARM testing. So if those resources disappear, that brings into question the whole sort of supporting Node and ARM story.
Okay.
So I would imagine there will be something, but I don't know yet. But having seen the announcement that Equinix Metal is going away, yeah, it brings into question the remaining machines of the ones that we weren't asked previously to migrate. But now the question is, yeah, are those machines still okay, or is there going to be some further migration that's going to be needed down the line? And
Okay.
2026 sounds like a long way away, but again, I think this is important enough that we need to be tracking this and not just hand wave it and assume that something will happen by then.
No, that's not that long, especially if we have to find other things. So you've already pinged the contacts we have?
Ed replied in the issue before
Okay.
Christmas, so um, as far as contacts, he's the one we've mainly been talking to. I think we get someone else, possibly from marketing, that sort of emails us every year saying, how's Node using I think no,
Right.
maybe they're from Works and ARM. Well, we get something that asks us every year, how we get on with our resources, and we kind of say, yeah, we're still using them to test Node on ARM and release stuff on ARM. Yeah, yeah. I can only say, like, let's keep this on the agenda, and then every now and then try and ping them if we get you know, no
So,
longer.
so, so you said Ed responded, he responded that he would look into it. Is that the,
He said he's trying to find out. He'll let us know
okay.
when he knows more.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
I kind of trust him. Maybe we'll have to remind him later on in the year, but
Sure. Yeah.
he's acknowledged it. So yeah, I don't know what else we can do other than to ping people, but I don't want to continuously ping people right at this moment in time. Obviously, as we get nearer, as we go through the year, that might become more
Sure.
often. At this point in time, it's we don't know yet, but people are aware of it, and yeah, we'll monitor and try and make sure that this doesn't
Okay.
walk its way to next year. We'll be panicking.
Sounds good. Infrastructure for Orca is the next one on the issue on the list. I think I don't know if anybody else has context versus, I know like Ryan and Ulysses were the two working on that, so I don't have any update, but I'm just opening the issue to see if there's anything in there.
No, I think the last thing Ulysses point pasted in there that
Okay.
he wanted to talk to Ryan. So yeah, I'm not aware of any updates either. I think we're waiting for more hardware, or maybe we've got the hardware, but it's not been set up. I don't know. That was my last recollection of this. That they had the basic things in place to do the setup and have everything working, but then it was blocked and requesting more hardware, and I can't remember if that happened and then we just haven't set that up, or whether we're still waiting. I don't know what the status on that is.
Okay.
Um, I guess on that front, I don't know if we need to bridge through to so LFIT have and they have some issue tracking in GitHub
Yep.
previously with Jira, and I maybe at some point we need to check whether we need to be duplicating or linking through these kind of issues if we're hoping to get you know Ryan's involvement still to let them track that against anything else he's been asked to look at. Um,
That is a good point. I think there likely should be, but it'll be maybe we can ask Ryan if he wants to create those or
because I think in the agenda there are some issues that are in the core repo.
yeah.
Those I think are all blocked on the Mac OS upgrades. So I think the story there is that the PRs are trying to use C++ features that require us to be on a later Xcode, and that requires us to be on a later version of Mac OS, which is then dependent on these infrastructure upgrades to get the newer Mac OS running in the CI. I'm not even sure if Mac OS 13 is new enough because I've not been paying that much attention to the Mac OS story, but I think once we have the infrastructure on the sort of new machines and we have enough machines or capacity in Orca, that then that would be a lot that would unblock that. But yeah, I don't know at the moment what state this
So
is
the
in.
PRs need a newer compiler. Is that the blocking thing you said?
I believe so, but I mean, this
Uh,
is my superficial knowledge of. I'm not
yeah.
an OS person, so my knowledge of this is flaky at best. I think this is like I think most of those PRs, maybe Yugi's or others that have said that the PRs aren't compiling on these versions of Mac OS. So
Okay.
um,
So, but basically, with that, like that's kind of the highest priority thing that's actually blocking work in the project these days.
depending on who you are, I guess.
Okay, what else is blocking people?
I haven't checked today. I did see last night there were a few things that were broken after the security releases, but I don't know if those were infra or something actually with the core repo.
Okay, but not long term. Like if those are new, that's a little
I
different.
think long term you're right. I think long term
Okay.
now that the Smart OS situation has been resolved in terms of machine setup, there may still be a few sort of like test things that need looking at, but I think now that the infrastructure has been migrated, um, we're now looking at the Mac OS as the next major blocker, followed by completing the Equinix migration of the things that were already planned for. Um,
Right. Okay. So I'll make sure that Ryan knows that. Anything else we should chat about on that one before we move on? The next one is new machine replacements. So the replacement for the Equinix x64 servers. So this is the one I guess I meant earlier, right? So there's still
yeah.
work or
So there are still to be migrated or were planned for migration. One is the unencrypted server, and I think the other was the Grafana server. No, or was that migrated? Might have been the May have been the Ansible Tower server. I can't remember. There are a few servers that, of the remaining servers, the unencrypted one was probably the more important. The other ones were less critical. I'm guessing I haven't seen any updates on those, and I presume those were put behind the smart, closing the smart OS story, and then I presume we'll be telling Ryan that the Mac OS stuff should be higher priority than this stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know, this one's kind of dragged on for a long time, so I don't know. It may be that we could sunset unencrypted, but I'm a little bit hesitant to just pull the plug unilaterally. But I think you and I may have discussed this before about
Yeah.
maybe having brownouts, but then brownouts might suggest that we keep this around for a while longer. So um, yeah, there are some remaining servers. As far as the project is concerned, it's probably not as important, but I think in terms of doing the right thing by Equinix, given that they asked us to migrate off these machines over a year ago, more than a year ago, that it would be nice to be out of the Equinix Metal accounts that were hosting the x64 servers, at least to say that's done, and then the ARM story from the other issue, that is something that still needs to be looked at, but at least then would have completed the initial ask that was made a few years ago.
Yeah, I can see in the issue that the three things were the unencrypted Grafana and SmartOS, which is
Smartest has been done,
yeah.
as far
I
as I
guess
know,
we
in
can
terms
check
of
that
actual
one.
machine migrations. We've deleted the old machines from Ansible. I haven't actually checked to see if they've been removed from the actual provisioning Equinix Metal account itself. But given that we're no longer using them in the CI, they can just disappear if they haven't disappeared already. So
Okay.
yeah, it is remaining would be the Grafana and unencrypted.
Okay, so the next one is Mac OS refuses to start Node when downloaded from the tarball.
I
That
don't know much about this, but the last time we talked about this when Ulysses was here, Ulysses said he hadn't had time to look at this. So I suspect this hasn't been looked at. Um,
okay.
Presumably it's code signing related.
I think so, but it's we do code sign the installer and the exe file, but apparently if you we provide a tarball, but if you unpack the tarball, then there is still some issue. So the binary is signed and if you use the installer is signed, but the tarball isn't. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Mac OS user. Um, I think at one point it sounded like you couldn't code sign a tarball, but UBC seems to think you might be able to. Um, I'm not even sure if code sign is the right word. It's something in the Mac OS system with like signing and gatekeeper. Um,
I think there are some extended attributes that could be set on
yeah,
things that may
possibly.
not be able to be represented in the tar file.
Yeah, I don't know. This is for people more familiar with Macs to look at.
Most,
I, I
most
I
Mac
don't know
software
if this
is
is a regret.
distributed in a disk
Yeah.
image or whatever that has all the funky stuff in it rather than in a tar file, which actually doesn't.
So we on macOS we have two packages that are on the Node.js website. One is a PKG installer that has been notarized and code signed. It's probably notarization that's the issue. Um, and then we've got a tile package, that you can download and unpack. Um, I'm not sure that this is a regression in terms of stuff we're doing, but it probably is that newer versions. Well, I say newer; they're probably not so new anymore. Versions of Mac OS have introduced additional checking that our packaging, at least for the tarballs, hasn't been updated for. Um, so we did update it for the PKG installers when I can't remember what version of macOS that was, but it was when I was Apple said jump and we all had to jump and do that. And I think at that time the tools were only available to sign, I think two formats of which the tarballs weren't one of them, but maybe things have changed now. I don't know, or maybe there's some other workaround that can be done. Ulysses was looking at it, and I don't really know what the state is on those. So it isn't that we've changed something and something's broken, but equally it may be that Mac OS has changed something, which means that whereas maybe in some older versions you used to be able to unpack the tarball and run Node from that, and now you can't unless you somehow say it's you trust the thing that Apple is telling you is untrusted. The binary itself is code signed, so I think this is something else like notarization or some other gatekeeping thing that's on macOS.
Just on that, I'm not sure I put it in the issue, but it only happens if you download it manually with a web browser. If you do something with a script, it doesn't happen. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's probably some extended attribute thing with then maybe the browser sets when it downloads. I don't know. I'm speculating here. But yeah, it's as far as we're concerned, I think nothing has been done on this since whenever the last update in the issue was.
I was going to put a help wanted on it because we don't have anybody looking at it. And this is the kind of thing, like if somebody from our discussion, I can tell we don't really know the Mac signing blah, blah, blah environment. So if somebody understood that, they might be able to explain like this is exactly the situation. Or even from what Michael just said, maybe it's just documentation that says like if you need, pull it down like this instead of a direct download or something. I don't know.
Yeah, for most people, we can probably say that. My use case is downloading the tarball from the Jenkins CI to test it. I don't know how to do that with a tool, so I do it with the web UI, and then I have to go through the complicated steps in macOS to force running the binary. You need to be to use the administrator password to do that.
On your machine.
And click on your machine. Yeah, you need to click on a few things to go to the settings, to the privacy and security, to force run the binary and put your password. After you do that, you can use the binary. So it's really annoying. But I have no idea how to fix that.
Does that mean like it still means if you go to our website and download the binaries, they'll run into the tarballs?
Yeah, it's the same problem with the website. But with the website, you can use wget easily to download it from the terminal.
Right. Okay. But the ones that you're downloading are like behind some authentication or something.
Yeah.
So I guess now that the website's been redesigned to promote version managers over, the official binaries, it's probably less likely people will hit this. But they still will if they manage to navigate their way through the drop downs and get to the tarball downloads rather than, the instructions that tell you to use a version manager like NVM or others.
Okay, well, I added help wanted, and I guess if we don't have anything else to discuss, move on to the next one, which is discuss state of R2 migration.
I think this is done as far as we're concerned. I don't know, maybe Michael, do you have any ideas as to if there's anything outstanding on this? Because I think we are now serving the downloads, the API docs and the downloads from R2 storage. So there were a few the switchover was just before NodeConf.eu in November, and I think there were a few issues with regards to backporting changes to older release lines. But I think that's all been done.
We are still serving two specific pages from the DigitalOcean server. It's those that are showing directory listings that contain symlinks.
Okay.
There is work in progress to support that in the Cloudflare worker, but I don't think it's done yet.
Okay.
So those are like the binary download links.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the index pages, I guess.
Right.
The ones where you can sort of download and it gives you navigate to and it gives you a list of files and directories that you can recurse into.
It does seem like I don't remember seeing, and I think Richard told me the same. Haven't seen the email saying that we're falling back to the fallback servers for quite a while.
I think if we're only
now almost nothing goes through the DigitalOcean server. Most of the requests come from those broken Artifactory installations that try to download npm packages from our server.
Okay.
But yeah, there's almost
And those
nothing
are
else.
just blocked,
So
right?
no, not all of them. Most of them are blocked, but those that have legitimate extensions like zip files
Okay.
and like everything that could be Node.js tarball, they
Okay.
still go through.
Okay. Okay, so basically almost done, but we shouldn't close that out yet. So still makes sense to leave it on the agenda. That takes us, okay, no, we've got a few more things in just Node, but just before we move on to that one, I did add one. I was just wondering about if we should think about the meeting time again. I know like for Ryan, who I pinged, it's like 6 a.m. in the morning.
It's the middle of the night, basically.
Yeah. And I know that Joshua would like to get more involved. So Michael, I think it's the latest for you right now.
Probably it's 15:30 now, so I could attend later.
So like a couple hours later would be okay. Is that
Yeah, up to 2 hours later.
okay? Because that would at least, well, 2 hours is 2 hours. Um, so would it make sense for us to try and move 2 hours later? Is there anybody like that's not going to work for?
Doesn't that conflict with the TSC meeting?
Well, we might have to either move weeks or move to a different day. We can only have one meeting at a time. The TSC meeting is every, yeah, no, it shuffles. Does
It
it?
shifts, right? 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But also, I think the build working group meeting is every 3 weeks. It's at some strange interval that doesn't align with the intervals on other meetings. So it means that, it won't, you couldn't set up a nice regular alternate time slot, unless of course we change the frequency.
Yeah, I think I mean, that would be worth considering, or if there was a different day, like is Thursday any better? We'd be talking like it's now 9, so 10, 11, it would be 11 Eastern.
Maybe that's something, Michael, we could open an issue to discuss for people that
Yeah.
aren't here right now to also
I was
be
just
part
thinking
of
we
it.
could get a proposal together
Yeah.
for this group. Like would Thursday at 11 Eastern work for people?
That'd be 8 Pacific.
Yeah.
We know every minute after 6 a.m. is better. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, I figure it's 2 hours later. I know it's 8 still not great, but
it's really a lot better, though.
so I don't know, Malad or Michael, like Richard, you three, like would that be an okay for you? Might as well not start with something that's not going to be with the most
Yeah, if it's only a few hours more, that's doable.
okay.
Anything more than that would be well, not challenge. It would require them to plan a bit more.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a sort of automatic yes, would be one. I don't think we need to opt for it right now, but I mean, in the past we have had rotating slots and tried to alternate between those to make things fairer for people. But I think if we could find one slot that sort of everyone can do, that's better than doing alternate slots where then we only get half the people at a
Yeah.
time. But that's because we had challenges with people from like Australia and then trying to fit those in. Time zones in like Australia, America, and Europe were challenging to find a slot that was amenable for everyone, and we ended up rotating. I think that was challenging given that we were on every 3 weeks frequency. So if you could only attend every other meeting, that means you were only attending a meeting every 6 weeks, which kind of then meant if we ever skipped one, might be a while before you ever got to participate. So I think that's the worst case, that we go back to a rotating thing, but if preferable, maybe
Sure.
just moving by a couple of hours would suit better suit people better.
Okay, so I
Australians
just
mostly pretty suspicious anyway, so I'm not sure we need to involve them.
At the moment, we've got nobody that I know of that's active in the working group from that region, but we did in the past, so that's why we had those accommodations.
Yeah, so I've opened an issue to propose Thursday, and people can discuss in there. Let me just put it in the minutes. Discuss, and create an issue to propose at a new time. Okay, we can see, and I copied Brian because I think it would be good to have him here for sure, the most as we can.
Yeah.
And I just also copied at Node.js build to get comments from other people as well.
And that's clear, is that in the calendar compared to other
I
groups?
was looking, yeah, I looked through, I don't see any meetings,
Okay, no, that's fine.
like community meetings in that slot. So, let me just see, wait a sec. Yeah, no, I don't see anything.
That would be the only complication,
Yep.
assuming you agree on a time, then making sure that we don't have
Yep.
conflicts with other meetings, because like I said, we can only have one meeting at a time with the community accounts.
Yeah, no, I don't see anything at that time. That's kind of what I was suggesting. Okay, so that's good. Moving on to Node.js Node. So implement what WG's URL pattern spec?
So I think all of these three things are
Okay.
blocked on the Mac OS upgrades.
Okay.
That's my understanding. That's the
Okay.
reason they've been tagged, because the people involved were getting frustrated that they've opened this PR and it's currently can't land because of it blocks infrastructure. That's desertion.
Okay.
Unless anyone knows if there's any other reasons that these are on here. I believe they're all macOS related.
I think you're right. And also V8 updates are blocked
On the same thing?
on the same thing, yes.
Yeah, okay. So really it is our most urgent, longer, like not short-term emergency thing.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna say so Richard, you mentioned they've shared that new tracker thing for Linux IT.
Yes.
Is it to the point where like it's documented, here's how we open an issue?
I don't believe. Well, the first I heard about this was at the TSC meeting last week, wasn't it? The private TSC session we had with Robin and
Yeah,
Ben. So that was the first I was aware of it. I'm guessing it may have been talked about at the cross CPC level, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I mean, it's not that it's secret. It's just I wasn't aware of it. The last I'd heard, they were using Jira as a project tracker, but
right.
that wasn't public. So I've got a tab with this somewhere. So I'll place it in here, but then um, there was this link that was shared that was a sort of how to submit issues,
Right.
and then uh, maybe I've lost the.
Okay, filing an issue in the infrastructure. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Because I'm like thinking, let's just open an issue there.
And then there was this project board, and there were things on this project board. So, for example, I can see that there is a Node.js Mac Stadium tasks issue there. I just it was updated within the last day. So yeah, maybe there is stuff going on that isn't happening in our issue, which again is always a challenge when you've got people in different projects.
Right. So let's link.
But at least maybe we should link the build issue to this issue.
Yep. I'm gonna do that.
And I mean, this is something we'll need to figure out. how to engage with LFIT on things, and I don't think we can wholesale build issues to to this tracker, because I think there's some things that we would need to do and build that are nothing to do with the LFIT support. But then there are some things that we have agreed in principle that should be primarily LFIT's responsibility, or that we would like to have them handle those things. And those, I think, are probably things that we should have on. I'm guessing this is the process. And yeah, I can probably look at possibly updating stuff on our repository to say this is how you request things from LFIT. I guess what we need to be able to do is somehow define under what circumstances you would do that, or whether it would be the project opens things on build and then it's up to us as a working group to then delegate or ask LFIT accordingly by raising issues here. I suspect it may be confusing to tell the project as a whole that some things need to go here and some things need to go here in terms of where to open issues. So maybe for now it would be easier to have issues on the build team and then build work out if LFIT has to be involved or not. I don't know I don't know if other people have ideas as to whether it could be made any simpler as to when you open an issue with LFIT versus open an issue in build. For people that aren't involved in build, people that are just general node collaborators.
Is the plan to treat them like any other provider, or are you looking to have them take on more than just providing machines and infrastructure?
They're intended to be more of like 24/7 type support, even though they don't have an SLA. But like the discussion we've always had is volunteers are not a great fit for urgent situations, right? Like, do you happen to have volunteer time when the machines go down? Who knows? Whereas somebody whose job it is to do it, and in theory, the Linux IT should have maybe backup and stuff like that. So they should be able to do a better job at the fires, like, hey, the machines went down. So I think that's the hopeful expectation, and sort of, and as a first step, Ryan was joining the working group and helping with some of these things. Like once he's helped migrate the Mac OS stuff, he should be in a much better position to handle the fires on the Mac OS stuff. So I guess like the answer is no, right? Like a regular provider, so for example, DigitalOcean, all they give us is machines, right? And so like we manage those machines, we spin them up, we spin them down. If something goes wrong with them, we're just like a customer, right? Like they're not gonna.
There was a combination of things. One was the ongoing sort of routine maintenance and sort of emergency. Something's gone down, needs to be brought back up, and it's blocking, like say yesterday's security releases. For an example. The other thing that this was tied up with was that some of our relationships with the providers was kind of woolly in that they were agreed in the past, and then we found we had no written records of agreements between us and providers. So LFIT, sorry, the foundation, the Linux Foundation, OpenJS Foundation wanted to have those more formalized, and this was another avenue of doing that, was to say like, let's try and formalize relationships more between us, the foundation, and hosting providers. And as part of that was also the question about ongoing maintenance and whether some of the routine sort of system availability type tasks, whether those could be handled better by a centralized LFIT team. And this is, the thing the solution that we're working towards, and we're still trying to feel each other out and find something that works for the project and for LFIT, because LFIT are an existing team that handle IT and infrastructure for other projects under the LFIT banner. And what we found is that while there are a lot of commonality between projects, there's also, each project has their own domain specific knowledge and foibles, or whatever you have. So Ryan's found that out the hard way trying to get involved with Node. And yeah, we're still trying to work that one out, I think, as to what is us, what is them, how much the mix there is. I think the answer will be it will be a blend of, I don't think we'll be fully, the build working group is not going to fully dissolve, but equally stuff it's going to be, handed over and saying LFIT is the primary responsible party that will, help out for certain aspects of infrastructure, and then how that's defined is something we're still working out.
We'll figure that. I did paste in the chat a comment I was going to put on the ticket. Just wanted everybody to take a quick look, see if you agree that, like, based on our discussions, that's fair.
I think so. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, just to make it clear, like, yeah, we want to, make it so it's understood this is top priority and it's blocking stuff, right? So,
yeah.
Okay, we'll add that.
That's our understanding.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
as long as nobody here says don't post that, doesn't make sense. That's what all we want to do, right? Like, make sure we have consensus here as a group. Okay, so I don't know that we can do too much else on that on that front right now, unless anybody else has some other ideas. But, like, our understanding is Ryan is working on that. We've confirmed it's our top priority, and so we're hoping, like, we don't have any other volunteers. I think Ulysses is helping him a bit as well, but, like, from our volunteer cycles, it's whatever Ulysses can do plus Ryan. So we're hoping this moves that forward. I think that takes us to the end of the agenda. The other thing I might throw on the agenda is we did talk a little bit about SmartOS before being one of the issues, and Josh was here because, like, they're going to try and get more involved in the build working group, and help manage the SmartOS machines going forward. So, like, I think it's the first step is to come and participate here. But that's kind of my proposal, is that, like, we work with Josh and Bree to say, like, let's work towards that goal. So I thought I'd see, like, anybody else in the working group have any thoughts on that, concerns.
More the merrier.
Okay, so I think we'll sync with Ryan as well, and, like, like we've done in some of the other cases, I think, like, we could start with access to test.
I think, I mean, I'm not criticizing the project for this. I think one of the challenges we have is that the project has traditionally been very ad hoc in terms of organization, and it's not a top-down leadership kind of thing. So other projects, for example, may have project managers that will their job is to drive tasks to completion by nagging developers / people to where is the status on this? Why hasn't this been done? Node traditionally hasn't had that, and I think that's part of the challenges we've had in things like prioritization, and if we're relying on others to do things, maybe not communicating the priority or deadline, not time frames, I guess. Yeah, it's like I don't think perhaps that we've done a good job in communicating to people outside of the project that we are interacting with or relying on.
That's why we are attempting to come at least within the vestibule of the project to I mean, so we've joined the platform group on GitHub, but it obviously, with respect, particularly with the CI infrastructure, the stuff that goes on just in the context of this meeting and the people that attend this meeting, that is separate from that. So we're putting our hands up to that too.
Yeah. So this meeting is primarily around, like, infrastructure and hardware to support sort of node releases and testing.
Right.
I think, had I been around at the start, instead of being called build, it would probably been called something like infrastructure.
Right.
And then the core repo is, where the actual work in terms of, how do I actually build node and run tests, that's in the core repo. So, there's always been some confusion as to what goes where, but
I did have a quick question about that as well, by the way. So obviously there are a few tests that appear to fail specifically on Illuma systems, SmartOS systems, and so I was hoping to create some issues in the tracker that were assigned to myself and Bree or the platform. I can't remember if you can assign an issue to a group, but and also like label them just SmartOS or whatever, just so that we can track. I think because ultimately, like each one of these tests is going to require at least a small investigation, and there'll be findings or something, and then we'll put up a PR to fix it at some point if we can, or if there's some other thing that needs to be done. I just wanted to make sure that we get, rather than just, so like we've got a few pings in the last few weeks, which has been good. But then I would like to be able to turn those into issues that we can then burn down and track separately, and also people can tell like what we're up to with that, and it's not just like, geez, those guys, are they doing anything like but what I couldn't seem to do was use the assignees or the labels when I was creating an issue. They all seem to be grayed out, which I assume is some kind of permissions thing. And I was wondering if there was a group one had to be in beyond just being a member of the project and a member of the platform team to be able to do that.
I think it's just triagers and collaborators who can actually like do those kinds of assignments. So you created the issues, but yeah, you won't be able to. You can comment in the issue and say like, "Hey, I'm working on this. We're working on this."
Okay.
So I think this is worth bringing up to, I guess it's the TSC's decision as to what access is given to the core repo in terms of permissions. It doesn't sound unreasonable to allow you to to do what you've asked for. And then the question is, the TSC needs to figure out, they're happy with that, and then how they actually make that happen, whether that's in an existing group that has the access you need, or whether that's another group that we would then need to manage. And it wouldn't be just a SmartOS group. I guess it would be something like a platform support group or something. But
right.
It would also possibly be
it is a permissions thing.
Like,
well,
how do you know which issues, right? Right. Like I think by default GitHub, like unless GitHub can say grant issue like access to these issues with this platform tag, I'm not sure how you could say like, yeah, you can do it on all these ones or not. Anyway, you're right. We're right that that's a reasonable question.
It's a discussion for the TSC as to whether the people that would have this would be trusted more or less than, say, triagers. So we already give triagers permission to do, I think, the things that are being asked for. I think triagers can do.
Like labels and assignees feels like triage sort of things. Yeah.
I think triagers can do that. So the question for the TSC is, do we just make these people, I don't want to say these people, it sounds very impersonal. Do we add platform team people to triagers, or is that just muddying the waters and we just have a similar sort of thing but a separate group? But that's something for the TSC to decide. I think.
I'm also happy to like not touch anything other than the things that we're responsible for. Like, I appreciate GitHub doesn't always have the most granular. Like, I'm sure that you cannot give access to a group to only touch a certain label, for instance, or something. Like, I just don't think they have that level of control. So,
what I'd say for now is comment in the issues to make it clear, and then also, like, are these tests which fail in the regular PR runs?
I am still. There's a lot. It's all very Jenkins, and so I'm trying to go through some of that stuff to find. I mean, if any of them fail at all, I think, at least for right now, I would like to just. Anytime anyone has pinged me to say like you should look at this, I would like to create an issue so that we make sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, like I'm not like hunting out for other tests to go look at necessarily, but like if there are like there's a test, for instance. I mean, the other day I found one that Bree pointed me at, and it was about the profiling thing, and we have just a peculiarity in our signal handling where synchronous signals, if you're using a timer that delivers its like, if you're using the profiling timer that delivers its timer activations through SIGPROF delivery, it's possible under some circumstances to end up with signal delivery that maybe you don't expect, and you have to look at the context or something. So which we've seen in the past with like Lisp and I'm sure that the JVM has code in it to handle this, so we might just need to add some code to do that, or the test might not quite understand how it's supposed to look or whatever. But I haven't actually looked at the test, just at the output. And so like things like that are definitely like platform things that we're happy to go and reproduce and nail down. So
Yeah, my main question about that was, so like creating issues is great because it's good to have the track and everything, but if
yeah,
there's like failures that are like persistent, or even if they're like relatively, 1 in 10 or something, and it's gonna take you like 3 weeks to fix them, you can also exclude them from the tests. Like as a
right.
platform, people, if there's something on like, say IBMI, which is a platform we help support, one of our team members, they're like, we're not going to be able to fix that for a month. We'll just disable the test, right? And we know that that's something that we've got to come back to, but at least it's not getting in the way of the project. So I just
And
want
that's just a configuration file that lists the disabled tests, or
Yeah.
exactly like in each of the, like in parallel, there's like a parallel.status, and you can just say for this platform, this test is allowed to be flaky, or you can say it's fails, or you can say skip, right? So you have the configuration to basically say like, okay, let's get this out of the way for a while. And in fact, like that's how I think we talked about flaky tests. We got flaky tests. People can just say, yeah, this has been flaky enough. Let's move it to flaky now. And it shows up as yellow instead of green or whatever in the CI run. But that's just another tool I wanted to make sure you're aware of, so that like, it's not that you have to fix it immediately, just fix the pain immediately.
yeah, stop the bleeding. Obviously,
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a broader effort? So, I mean, I'm only thinking about platform stuff, but is there like it feels like if flaky tests or tests that don't work are a problem routinely, that there probably should just be, in general, like an issue created per test that fails or something that people should
There's
look
a
at.
whole process to do that, right? Like when you open an issue, you'll see there's actually like a template, which is like, this is a flaky test.
Okay.
And like,
It is one of the things that the projects have struggled with. So we
yeah,
are reliant at the moment on volunteers to spot the issues and open the issues. The project is looking at maybe using, trying to get some funding to get someone to try and drive that effort, not on their own, but hopefully to, get other people and,
Yeah.
and and drive that. But it is something that we it's been a long-standing problem in the project that eventually it gets so bad that a group of people try and tackle it, and it gets better, and then it gets bad again. And
Sustaining work is always difficult to motivate, so I
yeah,
understand.
yeah, for people's context, this is kind of like a draft statement of work on that front. We don't have any money, so like we're not doing it, but like this is what we would do, and we are starting to look at, like, this is one of the reasons we're starting to look at like turning on GitHub sponsors and turning on, because like, hey, if we had some funds, we would direct it at this, and so we've got a concrete need, so why not see if we can get something.
Fair enough.
And there have been some efforts. We've just not been able to get enough sort of, like it's too big a task for any one person, like any one volunteer to take over. And we've never managed to get like a collective effort, or enough of a collective effort to make it happen, right? Because you could do it for a while, and then people are kind of like, oh, this is a never-ending thing on my own. I'm never going to touch
Yes,
it,
that's
right?
why it's called sustaining. Like,
Right, exactly.
but like there are other working groups, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
build group, and there's what else is there?
We have a Node API working group. We have a tools working
so
group. We have there's a
so
bunch.
this is one of those horrible like
Sure.
project only definitions that doesn't make sense to anyone outside the project. The working group term is a specific thing in Node where working groups are discharged responsibility from the technical steering committee. So in theory, the technical steering committee owns the Node project, but for things like build, for example, this working group, the TSC has said we trust this subgroup of people to handle in an autonomous manner these things. So
Like a specific delegation of
yeah,
an
a
area.
specific delegation.
Okay.
Usually it's supposed to be targeted where something can be done. Build isn't really anything that can ever be done. And maybe the sustaining work would fall under that bracket, that it would never be done. Even if you manage to magically fix or resolve all of the flaky issues, there's bound to be some new introductions later down the line. But yeah, I mean, there are a number of teams and sub teams which aren't working groups but are teams. So
So
I
there
think
was a
off the
test
top of my
team,
head.
which I think where you're going,
Yeah,
but many
but,
years ago, like
but
that
they
was
tend
probably
not
three,
to.
4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the issue there is because they're less formal, I guess, that it requires someone to drive that. Otherwise, they just fizzle out. People stop coming to meetings or stop talking about things, and then just drift away.
Like
Yeah.
that's one of the things we could see, like if we could, hire a test reliability lead for a certain amount of time, they could reinvigorate a test team, reorganize, and like maybe it keeps going after the period that they're funded for, right? But like it usually takes somebody with some leadership to keep those things going. And so a good example was like our security team that sort of fizzled, but then we actually got funding to as a security lead. They reinvigorated the security working group, has meetings. We did a lot more than that one person could have done, but like by having them there, that enabled enough focus and to make things happen. Okay, we seem to be, well, I guess we got 4 minutes left, but we're getting close to time. So just we will, I guess we'll talk with Ryan, but then maybe we'll open an issue that says like, hey, here's the goal that Josh and team are working towards, just so it's visible beyond the people who are in the meeting.
Yep.
And we can go from there.
That sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other issues that people would like to talk about or touch on? Okay, if not, thanks for everybody's time, and we will see you in GitHub and next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, bye.